January 9th, 1909. Ernest Shackleton leads the Nimrod expedition to the South Pole and goes farther than anyone had ever reached at that point in time. He privately writes to his wife, "I know a few things about going down south, if you know what I mean." Reportedly, she does not.
Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And joining us once again, friend of the show, Byron Graham. How are you
happy
doing?
To be back. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Zach. So delighted to be back. Here to talk about.
I feel like it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. I feel like I might have talked about a spy last time too. So
yeah.
Oh no.
No. I was thinking like I couldn't do alternate history this time because if anybody was a changeling from Brigadoon, it's this fucking guy.
a peek behind the kimono. We often do these. We often do these on Facebook Messenger. We organize these, and I think the previous message before this organization was one of our very earliest episodes about Roman emperors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Byron's been on here since then.
Yeah.
But for some reason,
like a thread with all three of us didn't happen since then.
Yeah, for some reason, the most recent message was about like very early on. He did an episode about Caligula, maybe, or Nero, something like that. When this podcast started in 2015, the Barack Obama days.
Oh, a simpler time.
Yeah, the president wasn't insane. There wasn't a pandemic.
We were all in the same building.
We were indeed, yeah. And now, even if we were in the same city, that would not be possible.
Nope. Brian lives like 5 minutes away from me, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I live. They have not been on the show, so I don't know how many people listening would know these names. I live in the same apartment complex as Ben Duncan, oh God, who's his fucking roommate? Wes. So yeah, like I could walk over to their place right now.
You guys should get in each other's bubbles. Why not?
I don't want to impugn their character. Yeah. Don't trust that bubble.
Fair enough.
Nowadays, whenever you're on Bumble, that's the opening message. Want to get in my bubble? That's how it starts.
It's just me, my mom, and my veterinarian. Get in my bubble.
Oh, Jesus.
If you're new to this show, this is a comedy/history podcast. The basic gist of it is we talk about a person or event from the history of our human race, our world.
You say that as if you're an alien.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could talk about
our
dinosaurs.
Human race.
So far, we have not talked about animal or pre-human history. So far, strictly humans.
That's also my new dating site that I'm hoping to get a good IPO on.
Yeah, that's the desperate on OkCupid when you're super desperate. It's so far strictly humans.
That's so fun.
But we talk about person or event from history. One person gives the sort of government-sanctioned Wikipedia textbook version of that person or event, and another person gives perhaps the more accurate, sealed by government classified bona fides Texas textbook version of that person or event that can be as batshit bananas as they want to. Could be a very much Stan Lee cameo in the middle of it kind of thing.
Has that ever happened?
Not so far,
okay.
But want to put the idea out there. Now that he's dead, he can. We have legal
He's
right
available.
to him. Yeah,
that's how the law works.
Yeah, when you die, you become public domain. And whatever wins the vote by a judge and then also by you, the people, becomes the true actual history of this great spinning, sphere, sapphire, blue marble going forward. I kind of lost it on that one. Yeah, that's the basic premise. We recently finished our series on medical history, timely. And in fact, it seemed timely when we started it, and it seems like it's just going to remain timely forever.
Yep. I had the thought when we first started that. I was like, okay, this is going to be timely for maybe a month or so, and then we'll move on to something else.
What we're going to do, we're going to come back around to it because it's still going to be timely in 2022 when we get back to it. Regardless, we talked about the Black Plague, the alternate history one in which a comedian who took very poor care of his personal hygiene, an ever-present truth, was the cause of the Black Plague. And also, in terms of Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first African-American female doctor in the United States, turned out she was a time traveler. That version of History 1. Yeah, so she was even more important than we initially assessed.
Yeah.
This time, we're going to be talking about Sidney Reilly. We're moving on to Spies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, indeedy.
Yeah.
Byron, you'll be doing the actual history this time.
I'll be doing the actual history. No changelings, no brigadoons.
Well, maybe it might have actually happened. I didn't.
I mean, that's what he made. He made
much.
everything up, and he did claim Irish ancestry at one point. So you never know. He could have been a changeling. This is not part of the. That's not on the record, though.
Yeah. Off the record.
Off the record, totally a changeling. He seems like just the candidate for it.
Also, shout out Ireland, because I was looking at some of our analytics. Apparently, we have a pocket of listeners in Ireland.
The country we've made fun of the most. Because
That's
we both have.
why.
We both have Irish ancestry, so we both feel comfortable saying Irish people are drunken, fucking stupid messes.
I've got some choice words for the Russians coming up. So
Yeah, no, that's we have no one in Russia.
I got some Russia in me, so I'm allowed to make fun of them, and also they attack our democracy all the time.
Yeah,
so
right? They're kind of just like the world's villains. Like they know their role. And they occupy it very comfortably. We're like, we're the bad guys.
They had it right in the 80s. Russia was the bad guy. We figured it out the first time. We didn't need to reassess later. The whole thing where we said the Middle Eastern people were the bad guys? No. Go back to the Russians.
That's a distraction.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, like OG Jordans, the 80s are back. And Russia's the bad guy again.
It's either Russia or disgruntled Americans. Those are the two main bad guys in the world.
And still, somehow, Ronald Reagan also. So.
Yep. Yeah. Evergreen.
Yeah.
Ghost of Ronald Reagan. Okay, I'll start with the actual...
When I say Ronald Reagan is evergreen, I don't mean his corpse, which I'm sure is gray and moldering as it should be.
Yeah. It's
just log on to ronaldreagancorpsecam.net and just get the live feed.
Oh my God. I actually would. If I ever felt bad, like had a bad day, I'd be like, let's see if Ronald Reagan's still dead.
You're like, oh, the worms are doing big things today.
Anyway, they're doing great work. They're doing work with his body that he never did himself.
No. Anyway, so Byron, whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. We're talking today about Sidney G. Reilly, a.k.a. the Ace of Spies.
Ooh.
The Motorhead song.
Yeah. I had the Motorhead and then the 007 theme just kind of switching back and forth.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was thinking, doing this. Don't go chasing waterfalls, maybe? A little bit.
Oh, yeah. It's a little out of left field. Some Boys to Men.
That was the code word they had in the day.
originally known as Sigmund or Shlomo Markovich Rosenblum, which a name like Shlomo is.
It's got to be good.
It's I get it. It's a a Judaic name, but man, Shlomo sounds like something a bully made up.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
Like, what about your brother Fastmo? All right, see myself out.
I'm fairly certain Poindexter was a real name at some point in history.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
They got rid of the Poin, which they should have. Get rid of that.
Gaylord, of course, a real name. I think that
Yep.
one can make a comeback because it only ended because of homophobia.
Yeah.
I know.
I think honestly, the first time I saw Fiddler on the Roof, and I realized that the character's name was just Laser Wolf, and that was just like sort of a fairly traditional Jewish name. I was just like, oh, what is this magical language?
Laser Wolf is awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fucking
he's
fantastic.
Way better than Shlomo.
Yeah.
so far my favorite Cyberpunk 2077 boss is Laser Wolf.
It's not even what you're thinking. It is the character from Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah, it is actually the character. He was cryogenically frozen.
Let's see. Born in either 1874 or 1873. Born in Odessa, which is in the modern day Ukraine, but back then, part of the Russian Empire back then, and in the future, if Putin has his way, part of the Russian Empire. He was a polyglot.
This episode is coming out This is coming out in like almost 2 weeks, so maybe at this point.
Katie just texted me, Laser Wolf is the name of the butcher in Fiddler on the Roof. That's precisely what we were talking about.
I like to think she's not actually in the room with you, and that was just apropos of nothing.
I'm in the dining room and she's in the living room, but
okay.
She can't hear me. She can't hear you guys.
Briefly, in regards to Vladimir Putin and his conquest, his megalomaniacal ideas, he's not in a great place because they claimed to have one of the lowest COVID death rates. And in the past few days, turns out they have the second or third highest in the world, and they just hid the numbers.
Yeah. Honestly, who couldn't have seen that coming?
Yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Yeah.
Okay, polyglot. He spoke 7 languages, which is part of what prepared him for a lifetime of espionage. He spoke, most importantly for this story, English, Japanese, and Russian. His life inspired a lot of books, including The Gadfly, which was written by his former lover, Ethel Lillian Buell. And romancing a spy is officially the sexiest thing that's ever happened to a woman named Ethel. Ethel Buell. He also was the inspiration for James Bond. Ian Fleming got some of his ideas while reading Reilly's old Secret Intelligence Service reports.
I think James Bond has 3 or 4 inspirations, but he's definitely one of them.
He's definitely one of them. And then
it's whatever Ian. Oh God, I almost said Ian McKellen. Whatever Ian Fleming was reading while he was edging himself for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Depending who you ask, he was either one of the greatest spies who ever lived. That's certainly his account of his life. But he was also a con man, womanizer, war profiteer, and probable murderer.
Yep, that sounds right.
But like I said, you got to take... Oh, go ahead.
The nature of the murder with spies is very dependent on the situation, in my experience. Christopher Lee is a probable murderer, but I don't hold that against him because it was probably some fucking Nazis.
Yes. Yeah. This was strictly murder for profit, in the case I'm talking about. They don't think that he ever killed anybody in the course of his espionage.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, take everything with a grain of salt because a lot of this could be fabricated. A lot of it's probably fabricated by Reilly himself. So he was the illegitimate son of a Jewish doctor into the Russian Empire. So he's like, I got to get out of here.
Yep, that's fair.
Anti-Semitism is a cornerstone of Russian culture and economy. It's right behind borscht, vodka, and dying in huge numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say a cornerstone of Western civilization.
Yeah, that's also...
Russia doesn't have a monopoly on it, but they're pretty good at it.
They're pretty good.
He had to get out of there. So depending on whose story, he either studied chemistry in Vienna or stowed away on a ship to Brazil, where he adopted his first assumed identity, Pedro.
Wait, so which one is his story?
His story is Pedro.
Oh, okay.
His story is the interesting one.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And
simply Pedro. Just Pedro.
Pedro, just one name.
He went from Shlomo to Pedro.
Shlomo to Pedro Rosenblum. Somehow he got acquainted with the British military. Again, his story, probably untrue version, is that he saved Major Charles Fothergill, a guy with the most British name ever, from an attack by hostile indigenous people of the Amazon. But seeing as how that sounds like a story from a book, probably not true.
He's probably studying fucking chemistry, the loser.
Yeah. Later reports place him in Paris, where he was either working for or against the Italian anarchist movement. But
just depending on who you ask.
Depending on who you ask, although I think he was spying on them, like he ingratiated, like it was an early example of espionage. But anyhow, he murders 2 Italian anarchists and absconds to England with their revolutionary war chest. Like he steals a bunch of money from them. Well, they're anarchists, so they're like, well, I don't like it, but I get it. This is
game, respect, game.
Once he moves to London, he kind of, hobnobs with higher London society. He enters into an affair with a woman named Margaret Thomas. She's the wife of a wealthy reverend named Hugh Thomas, and he probably kills Hugh Thomas. They at least conspire to kill him with arsenic. And then Reilly poses as a doctor who they can't find any record of, by the way, and who bore a striking physical resemblance to Reilly, or at this time he was Rosenblum. Poses as the doctor to sign the death certificate, marries 24-year-old Margaret Thomas, and takes that inheritance money. And around this time, he begins working with Thomas Melville of Scotland Yard, and changes his name from Sidney Rosenblum, or from Shlomo Rosenblum, to Sidney Reilly.
And so I'm also excited now that we can tag this episode "True Crime."
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a whole new echelon you can get into. There's murders coming up. There's 3 murders already. And he definitely murdered that Hugh Thomas guy. They know that he pretended to be the
Yeah. Like at a certain point, you're in the shit no matter what.
Yeah. That's one of the few things that they absolutely did verify, is that the doctor who signed Hugh Thomas's death certificate did not exist, and that they found correspondence between Reilly and Ethel Boole. So they, all right. So yeah, he's Melville gets promoted from Scotland Yard to the British Foreign Intelligence Service, and recruits Reilly, who speaks Russian, to go do some spying in Russia. So Reilly and Thomas move to St. Petersburg, where they're recruited into they're spying for the English government throughout Manchuria to get the progress of the Trans-Siberian Railroad. But while he's there, he meets a major of, I'm forgetting where I wrote this guy's, a major of the Japanese Imperial Army. I think it's Jira. I'm not going to make up a I don't remember.
I was going to say,
I don't remember it. I thought I wrote it down, but it's not here. A major of the Japanese Imperial Army to start spying for Japan as well. So he's a double agent for Britain, for Japan, and gathering crucial intelligence in the build-up to the Russo-Japanese War.
Oh, okay. I was going to say this was like early 1900s then.
Yes. This is late 1890s, early 1900s.
Right.
Reilly's a young man still at this point. And his biggest triumph in the Russo-Japanese War is he steals the defense plans of the Russian naval stronghold of Port Arthur, which is located in Manchuria. And he enables the Japanese to start the Russo-Japanese War with a huge, devastating sneak attack on the Russian Navy.
Okay.
And then he sticks around in Manchuria, buying and reselling goods to war victims at a huge markup. So he's like, all right, I've done some spying. Now I'm going to do some war profiteering.
Yikes.
So yeah, he makes a fortune. And then, again,
they really leave that out of the James Bond story.
They do. Like, the whole war profiteering angle. There's a lot of war profiteering in this. This is just his first taste. Speaking of international, that seem dubious now, one of his biggest coups was securing British oil drilling rights in Persia. It's it's an imbroglio called the Darcy Affair. That's one of his most famous exploits. There was an Australian mining engineer named William.
I have to say, the idea of gaining oil drilling rights in Persia, in one of the more grounded James Bond films, that would be the villain's major plan.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. Switch out Persia for Bolivia, and that's Quantum of Solace. That's the story.
Actually, I will say Quantum of Solace has the best villain plan because they think he's after oil drilling rights. He's after one of the biggest freshwater reserves in the world, anticipating water wars in the wake of global warming. One of the most
most plausible. I'm sure there's somebody working on, Bezos has got a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the one who just turns people into gold. I don't really remember that one.
Goldfinger?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Goldfinger's plan was to drop a nuclear bomb on Fort Knox, irradiating all the gold so that the gold he had would increase in value because that gold was irradiated. Okay, yeah.
That's right. It's only slightly more grounded than mine.
So an Australian mining engineer and magnate, William Knox Darcy, somehow owns the concessions to drill for oil on Persian land, and Reilly dresses up as an Irish priest.
Okay.
Sneaks aboard Darcy's yacht in the French Riviera and convinces him to sell the rights to England instead of selling them to the French Rothschilds.
So, the priest part, was that just
I don't know.
they were out
everybody,
of stuff at Spirit Halloween, or
it's in the Bible. You can't. Thou shalt not turn away a priest from your boat. That's
yeah. That's
if I'm partying on a yacht and an Irish priest shows up, I'm not okay, let's talk about my business dealings. Get out of here. This is my party yacht.
I'll see you on the God boat, which is just a dinghy.
So it leads to the founding of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which is part of the British Empire's Great Game. It's what they called their foreign policy at the era, which is basically, it's tantamount to like, let's just steal a bunch of natural resources from other countries. Like, oil is going to be important, so let's get our hands on all of it that we can, because we have none on our soggy little island. There's some stuff about him aiding the Dutch in the Boer War, but there wasn't a ton of information about it. I only found one source that suggested it, so I'm not going to go into the Boer War, which is also a very confusing war to me.
Yeah, First of all, there's like two of them.
Yeah,
and like right on top of each other.
If you're in 11th grade history and they start talking about the Boer War, you know what your pun is going to be right when they start talking.
Yeah,
and no one wants to hear about the Boer War.
More like the boring war.
Precisely the pun. Classic, more like Borophyll.
Yeah,
kind of pun.
Yeah,
there's more than one of them. Boer War, not a good war.
Not one of those good wars.
Not one of those good wars. Not like
World the War.
World War One. Segue.
Welp.
Suffice it to say, some years go by. Sidney Reilly checks his watch. Is like, well, it's about World War 1 o'clock, and
it's weird that I know.
We forgot to mention that he had a magical clock that told him what time a war was.
Yeah, the clock's name was Lumiere.
Yeah.
Or no, way, that's the fucking candles. Anyway.
Cogsworth is the clock, you fucking cretin.
Sorry, Cogsworth. I apologize to the family of Mr. Cogsworth.
Yeah, man, you're going to get canceled, dude. You can't be calling your Cogsworths Lumieres in 2020.
It's fucking not woke. Do the research. Do the research. Look, it's not my job to educate you.
Look, I apologize if any talking clocks were offended by what I said.
My culture is not your Cogsworth. That doesn't make sense.
Look, we're on a tightrope here. I don't know how
much
I want to.
Riley moves back to St. Petersburg at a few years before the outset of World War One to do a little bit of pre-war spying. He gets a job in a German shipbuilder, and over the next 3 years, he steals bit by bit the entire 5-year naval plan of the Wilhelmite army.
I don't know why. I thought you were going to say a boat.
He steals a boat. Bit by boat is what he calls it.
Every single thing he does seems like the plot of Rogue One, basically.
Yeah. I can see that.
He's stealing the plans to the Death Star.
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen is there, so is Alan Tudyk.
If the Death Star wasn't built by obviously morally black people.
It was built by space fascists.
Yeah.
So he steals the plan, so he secures a pretty large naval advantage for the British before the outbreak of war. And then once the war begins, he goes to New York City, where he tries to whip up American support for the war effort and to counter German efforts to sabotage American munitions factories that were supplying munitions to the Allies.
Mm-hmm.
And he also got to return to his first love of war profiteering.
Or I was going to say murdering people's husbands.
No, murdering people. It's war profiteering, stealing ladies, and then murdering people.
I mean, when you love what you do, you never really work a day in your life.
So yeah, he was selling munitions possibly to the Germans and the Russians during this time. Again, hard to verify, certainly not in his own accounts of his own history. And then possibly he flew air raids with the Canadian and British Air Force.
I'm sorry, if there's one country I did not expect to enter into this, it was Canada.
Canada got into World War I before the United States did. He also he reportedly went behind German lines several times throughout the course of the war, and his crowning achievement, which probably didn't happen, was he somehow subterfuged his way into
45 hoagies in a 30-minute period.
No, he did the cinnamon challenge behind German lines.
That's actually what led to the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Kaiser Wilhelm couldn't hold his cinnamon. And I mean, credit where it's due, Reilly did spit it out while no one was looking.
I mean, also, who's getting to 44 hoagies and is like, can't do 45? That's a bridge too far for old Sidney.
So he ate 45 cinnamon hoagies.
Oh, God. Yeah, you guys know you want that cold cut ham and cinnamon.
But yeah, apparently his crowning achievement was sneaking into a strategy session with Kaiser Wilhelm himself. But that was probably a self-aggrandizing story. And here's these next years, it gets even murkier than before. Back in Russia, once the World War I is over, the British Empire gets immediately concerned about the Bolshevik revolution, which coincides with the end of World War I. He does this thing where he's like, "Hey guys, I'm a Bolshevik like you. I'm gonna spy," and he's like,
"Let me tell you about this anarchist I used to know."
And he organizes an almost successful counter coup that includes an assassination attempt against Vladimir Lenin, but it fails, and he has to flee Russia. And so he's kind of cooling his heels in England. Melville and everybody is telling him, don't go back to Russia. But then a counter-intelligence operation started by the Stalinist government called the Trust. Which is like, yeah.
That's a Stalin name.
Any Russians talking about the Trust, I buy it. I believe it. They've never led us wrong before.
I could see the movie poster for this concept.
Yeah,
it's The Trust, a movie starring Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood.
Reilly returns to Moscow thinking that he's involved in an anti-Bolshevik group, and then he's shortly arrested and killed in what they think is 1925. And they don't know a ton about the circumstances surrounding his death, but records do show that it was ordered by Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, well, you fuck around with Stalin. If anybody knows about rewriting history better than Sidney Reilly, it's fucking Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, or even you brought a Reilly to a Stalin fight, my dude.
I have that set. I have that Magic the Gathering set with Reilly and Stalin. Stalin wins every time.
And that's the he's dead. So that's the story of Sidney Reilly, the ace of spies.
Not that ace. He got fucking murdered trying to do a spy.
By like the most obvious fucking trick.
That's he's more impressive to me as a con man than as a spy.
Oh,
he rooked all these people.
He sounds almost more like Frank Abignost or whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah,
Abagnale.
Catch
me if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Byron, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for waiting for me to finish my Trafalgar Square thing last week.
Yeah, look, again.
I started writing it down and I was just like, oh, wait, that's all not true. Or I don't know. I needed to get like the whole story and then write it.
Yeah.
And I was doing it piecemeal and it just wasn't working.
It's a little behind the kimono. We were going to record this last week, and then tonight Byron mentioned that he's working on a Trafalgar Square puzzle.
This was going to be your Christmas episode. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, a Lego, not like a puzzle. Okay.
Byron, could you do me a genuine favor?
Yes.
Take a picture with your phone of that Trafalgar Square Lego manual, or the completed thing if you have it completed. Send it to Brian and we can put it on our Instagram.
Yes.
Oh, it was my Christmas present.
Yeah. I mean, it was also mine because I would have ended up editing an episode on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Oh, good. Yeah. I feel like podcast listeners are taking a break during the holidays. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I actually feel like that's the opposite of true. Usually, the holidays are when I'm like, I need a fucking minute. Is there any new podcasts? I'm not at work.
Yeah, but fewer people are like traveling to their weird aunt's place where they're like sneaking off into the bathroom to listen to an episode of like Last Podcast on the Left.
Or smoking a cigarette like, Gwyneth Paltrow and the Royal Tenenbaums.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Well, I have, sort of a, it doesn't fully contradict Byron's history of Sidney Reilly, although there will be some things that come up. So when Sidney Reilly joined the Foreign Intelligence Service, he became privy to a lot of the secrets of the inner workings of the British Empire, things that were going on in the colonies that the public didn't really know about. And chiefly, the chief secret he became aware of was that in her last 40 or so years on the throne, Queen Victoria developed a massive thirst, an insatiable hunger for...
Stop. I thought truly you were going to say hemorrhoid.
No, I'm gonna save the insatiable hemorrhoid for another one because that gives me a good story prompt. No, but Queen Victoria,
1837 to 1901 is a long time to sit on a throne. That's all I'm saying.
But no, it was like the X throne, so it was ergonomic. Dumb. So she's rich, she's powerful, she's sort of isolated. So over 40 years, she develops this appetite for erotic stories from all corners of the empire. And the whole royal family being raised in that environment, they developed the same hunger. They just wanted sex stories from Hong Kong to the Caribbean. And as the empire expanded, along with spices and tea and oil, they brought in these stories. But after a while, it wasn't enough. They needed more. They needed more outre topics. And by the time Sidney Reilly joined the Foreign Intelligence Service, every arm of the British government had been dedicated to unearthing hot sex tales from every corner of the globe. And this...
It was the erotica force. It was... Yeah, before an... what is it called? An archive of our own. This is the original version.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to not actually give away actual porn knowledge. I know Byron has some sort of Victorian erotica background.
That's Lord Humphrey Sliptickle.
That's
You're
Lord Humphrey
confusing me
Sliptickle. That's right. Sorry. But Reilly was actually really well suited for this. Not only was he a skilled con man, a smooth talker, he was a keen story editor. And like every story editor, just a grade A cast iron pervert. Like a number one, bone shattering, just what this guy thought about 24/7. So like his first mission under the guise of a simple counterintelligence patrol, he collected this particularly ribald tale of a pool boy caught, in the spell of the widow who employs him, and it was such a hit, not only in sort of the intelligence circles, but with the Queen, that he was pulled aside and he was promoted, and they actually had him create a task force dedicated to unearthing just the filthiest stories the world had to offer, so the rest of the government can focus on the other shit they were doing. So he organizes this force. He calls it Her Highness's Obliging, Ribald, and Naughty Yeoman, or Hahorny. Hahorny goes on many missions, like Operation Lockhart, the tale of two lordly gentlemen wrapping up a game of squash in a most exhilarating manner. The Assy mission about a lady in waiting with a caboose that would wait for no. I'm trying to think of not like gross or upsetting synonyms here, and it's kind of more challenging than I thought. There's Operation Roald Dahl.
See, when you said ASCII, I wasn't sure if you meant like ASCII, like
the
coding, like the standard code thing, interchange thing.
No. In this context, it's butts. Yeah.
Okay, so it is.
Where another story that takes place in a fanciful factory that is opening its doors for the first time in years, and they manufacture a range of fantastical toys, dildos, really, mainly dildos. Of course, there was also like actual spy work involved. Most famous mission was when he stole the blueprints for like the world's most advanced cock ring to keep it from falling into Stalin's hands, which that pissed Stalin off. And they already didn't like him because in the USSR, it was actually illegal to have porn or erotica that wasn't about Stalin at this time, or at least did not feature a Stalin lookalike. And like current Stalin, not young Stalin.
Yeah, it's called Stalin Core. It's still very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. It's Stalin play.
Oddly popular in Indonesia, which you wouldn't think. Yeah,
it's weird how these things crop up in the weirdest. Yeah,
it is.
I saw one of those charts of like the most common places that look up different porn, and it's like, oh, in Minnesota, it's granny porn, and in Tennessee, it's Stalin play. Like, what the fuck?
I would have thought in Minnesota it would at least be casserole porn.
I mean, isn't that the same? Isn't that the same as granny?
Yeah.
Yeah, they usually have a casserole when they enter the scene.
I think they actually call it hot dish, which is more appropriate.
Yeah.
There's also like thinking about, because like everyone's horny for like that fucking young Stalin picture, but it just reminds me of how every single Russian person just ages super hard. Like they look at like age 35, they look, really, really good. Then a Russian person turns age 36, and it's like something happened. They took a right turn. So anyway, even for someone working as a spy undercover, Reilly grew famous. Later books and movies would be based on his exploits, like Ian Fleming. So some of Ian Fleming's works based on the life of porn hunter Sidney Reilly were Dr. Yes, In Her Majesty's Secret Cervix, Goldfinger, these things.
Octopussy, yeah.
That one was actually just called Eight Pussies.
So the thing about when you porn parodize Ian Fleming novels, eventually it's just like
Moonraker.
It's already there.
Yeah.
It's already there. You start with "You Only Come Twice," and you end up with property of a lady. And, a genuine Ian Fleming story. Yeah.
Thunderballs.
Yeah. Now Ian Fleming was part of like I think with Roald Dahl, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about Roald Dahl, Christopher Lee, and someone else whose name is escaping me right now. He was part of a government agency in World War II called something like the League of Ungentlemanly Services, or something like that. Well, that too. But I think Ian Fleming, with like Roald Dahl and someone else, wrote like erotic.
Roald Dahl wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang screenplay and You Only Live Twice. The screenplay for that James Bond movie was written by Roald Dahl.
Right. But I think they together wrote erotica, I think with a third person involved that did not like get super published.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But like with Reilly's success in bringing in these stories, pressure really started to mount. Because like you're feeding that sort of hunger, it doesn't go away. It builds on itself. And so Reilly, the pressure got to him and he eventually buckled and began making stories up. He became a fabulist. And like each one was exactly what the Royals wanted. It was perfect. They were just very pleased, and then guilty, and then sort of low-level depressed for the rest of the day. They were masturbating. Is what it says in my notes. But like the stories were a little too perfect, and no one else would have caught it except for his fellow Hohorny agents, and so they caught him in a snare. They trapped him. Inventing the story of the Duchess's fursuit. And so he was sort of disgraced and he was put on desk duty. And his sort of fall from grace later became the subject of the movie Shattered Ass starring Hayden Christensen. Dumb.
Your porn parody, they're so funny. They're so revealing. Nobody else remembers the movie Shattered Glass.
I did not. I didn't know that was fun on anything.
I have watched that movie like 5 or 6 times. It's a movie where Hayden Christensen is actually great because his character needs to be incredibly whiny and insufferable.
Yeah.
Like Hayden Christensen in 2007. Let's say. I'm sure he's matured.
The 2007 film Shattered Glass that everybody remembers. And when you make your porn parody reference, hey, you remember the Sandra Bullock movie Premonition?
Premonitionary, yeah.
What about, yeah, exactly.
Which is actually kind of a boring porno.
My first thought was Prem-cum-mission, but yeah, Premonitionary is better.
And of course, Uncle Boon Me, who can remember his past fucks.
Well, people actually like that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a great movie.
It is. It's fantastic. I don't mean to lump it in with the same category as Premonition.
I mean, she does bang a fish in that movie.
That's true. I forgot about that.
So I think Queen Victoria would approve.
So dissatisfied with being assigned desk work, Reilly decides to defect to Japan. But he's caught en route by Soviet forces. And he's charged on these sort of, trumped up charges, causing sort of unrestricted horniness among the people. And he's executed by firing squad. And before he left, though, he did pass on his file of erotic stories to David Duchovny Sr., which led to eventually the Red Shoe Diaries.
Not even Californication.
Californication.
Okay. So just, okay.
Well, both, I think. I, for some reason, think David Duchovny was involved in both.
He was. He was but in the Red Shoe Diaries, he was just reading he would go to the bridge with his dog to read these erotic letters, like you do.
Just
this is a steamy story. Let me go to a public park.
I really like that your pop culture swings and this alternate history are very niche.
Yeah, that's true.
And yet, I know all of them.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Part of that was like, Byron's erotica. Because, of course, Byron makes me think of erotica. I don't want to cross these wires. I realize now.
Is from Queen City Companion. May she rest in peace.
Yes. Where I don't want to explain the character.
Listen, I've been friends with Brian for many years, and he does have a tab on his laptop that is BFG/OC or BFG/POV. Like, these things are just all over the place.
And /OC is actually /fiction with the cast of the show The OC.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a little more mainstream.
It's me
Byron,
and Seth Cohen.
You don't know how many times you fucked Seth.
Hey, he was a relatable character, so I'll
I'm sorry. Summer said no, and you were there.
In no world did I imagine you two would know shit about the OC.
I was in high school in the mid-2000s, my friend.
So was I. I did not see that. Anyway, that's the alternate history of Sidney Reilly.
I watched all 4 seasons of the OC. I not only saw it, I was a completist.
The main reason I know it is I never watched it when I was in school, but my girlfriend was a big fan of it, and we have recently we have once a week a thing called Trash Night, where we drink too much and watch trash TV.
Nice.
And the OC is one of the trash TV shows we've been watching. We're about a third of the way through season 3.
It's pretty great trash.
Yeah.
The 4th season is insane. Or you're just like, why'd you do this?
Oh, God damn it. Listeners, before we move on to Judgment, if you want to start off the new year right, why don't you write us a review on your podcast service of choice? Written reviews are especially helpful. They put butts in the seats and our voices in your ears.
And the beautiful thing about iTunes reviews, written ones, is you can write whatever you want. You can write your favorite OC ship. So, are you Seth Summer? Are you Ryan? I forget Misha Barton's character's name right now. Marissa? Yeah. Whatever you like.
Perfect. Yeah. You can also write us a letter on revisionistpodcast.com. Or keep in touch on our Instagram or Twitter. Just search Revisionist Podcast. And if you are so inclined and have extra money, which I know is not the situation for a lot of people, we do have a Patreon, which is just search The Revisionists on there and check out the rewards we have for you if you are able to donate.
But again, before that, I would recommend donating to, we had an Amnesty International person come by recently who was talking about, there's a lot of people displaced by COVID. Mm-hmm. Set up a regular subscription to that first, or, it's the holiday season, it's the winter, if you can go out to Walgreens and buy some socks and withdraw $10 and a toothbrush, whatever, a box of tampons, something for a homeless person near you, that stuff is very important to unhoused people who might live around you. And some people don't think about that, but socks, tampons, toothbrushes, stuff like that is extremely important to folks like that. Extra coats, that stuff.
If you have access to an outdoor supply place you can order from, the little packets of hand warmers are also a really good idea, and you can get a case and just distribute them throughout the winter. Yeah, I guess that also sort of covers our plugs, because we've been talking about things that are more important for that section, and I guess just
I'll say briefly, I have another free podcast that's on YouTube and podcast general areas called The Movie Trap. It's kind of a film review / game. If you're interested, go ahead and give it a listen. Brian's been on an episode, and it's if you like this, you might like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this isn't the most important thing, but if you're a fan of Denver comedy, you should kick some bucks to the Lion's Lair. They have a GoFundMe to stay open.
Lion's Lair is an institution.
An institution. I don't just say that because I'm somewhat in their employ as an open mic host. I love that place. I would be really sad to see it go. Mm-hmm. A lot of places in Denver are closing. This has been hard for everybody, but if you've got war profiteering money, I can give it to the Lion's Lair.
Lion's Lair is an icon of the Denver landscape, and it'd be a true shame if it went away.
War profiteer money would not be the dirtiest money that had ever passed through Lion's Lair. I can fucking guarantee.
Yeah. No, there's some literally dirty money.
That
is probably still in the register from '85.
So support an institution that is also the most haunted bar in Denver, probably.
Donate to their GoFundMe, or the jazz ghost will haunt you. It's a very soothing haunting, though, I will say. Instead of wailing above the quarter, it just plays some righteous sax every day at 3 a.m.
Every soul who made a go at Denver comedy in the past 25 years has a story about the Lion's Lair, and it'd be tragic if that place disappeared.
Jason Wardell met his wife there.
I was going to say,
Show.
I was there that night. I think also somehow, and I could just cut this out, I think we were there, Zach, and somehow Vic G's clothes ended up in your car.
Oh, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me about him. It surprises me about that he was able to get inside a vehicle somehow.
Yeah. There were some pants in my car.
Anyway, that brings us to Judgment, which is on Zach's shoulders this episode.
I gotta say, this is an interesting one. It's probably a career bullshitter. There's a unique enticement in this episode because the real story is the alternate story. It's both at once. As much as I appreciate your erotica crossover stuff, Brian, I can't deny the fact that I can vote for the real story and the fake story at the same time. And I just got to do it. I got to do it.
Yeah, that is totally understandable. And listeners, voting is now, early voting is now open on Patreon. And check out our Instagram story next Wednesday. Not the first Wednesday after this comes out, but the second one for the final round of voting. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. Byron, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, guys.
By the way, that'll be Wednesday, I think the 16th.
Yes, thank you. I was fumbling with my phone trying to get that. Zach, thank you as always.
Of
Thanks,
course.
guys. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a good time. Happy New Year, everyone listening.
Actually, well, when you've listened to this, it's already the new year. So
yeah, the New Year is like 9 days old at this point. So
yeah, you're done with that shit.
Yeah, you're already saying this is worse than 2020 because our short-term memory. Anyway, have a good time. I want to sign off weirdly dunking.
Don't you think it'll be interesting? Like one of these years, before we go, I actually want this in the episode. So for the past 5 or 6 years, no, probably like 4 or 5 years, every year we've been like, the next year can't be worse.
Yeah.
1 year it's going to get better, right?
You'd think that, and I kind of think that might be the case, or it could. We could be in.
You're in 2020, listener. I hope it's starting out on the right foot. Have a good time.
Have a good time.
And another year of revisionist fun.
Yeah. January 9th, 1861. Mississippi becomes the second state to attempt to secede from the Union and carries on that legacy today by being 49th in education. January 9th, 1909. Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton plants the British flag 112 miles from the South Pole, if you know what I mean. Okay, one more. January 9th, 1923. Juan de la Cierva makes the first autogyro flight. To everyone's shock, there would be later autogyro flights.
January 9th, 1431, the trial of Joan of Arc begins in ruin. Judge Kavanaugh defends his right to judge despite the fact that he likes a few beers with his friend Squee.